YOLO amazing people of YouTube. So today I want to talk to you guys about men and how the size of men in terms of height has changed throughout the centuries. Now, in the last century, it's no coincidence to anybody that the average size of men and women has risen. It might have risen an inch or 2 inches compared to the century before. And that's strictly because of diet, right? The amount of nutrients we get nowadays within this last century compared to the centuries before that, it's no wonder that most men are taller than their grandparents, for example, or their great-grandparents' generation, right? Now, me personally, a personal belief I have is that giants actually existed on this planet at one time or another. And a very unique thing has happened throughout the centuries, right? It was always advantageous to be slightly larger than other people. But it was a handicap in a way to be extremely large compared to the rest of the people. A lot more was expected out of you. You were expected to be a better soldier, right? You were already naturally strong. And what ended up happening with these extremely large people was they ended up getting killed off. And they got killed off because they were able to rule through force, right? Out of fear and pain and stuff like that. And they were able to rule through force. Sorry, I had to put the phone down for the cop. But what ends up happening is, back then, you're talking about, there was no cameras, there was no pictures, there was no, if someone was a certain ruler and he was ruling in a certain way, he would end up in a very horrific death, right? Someone would grab a stone and just bash his brains in while he was sleeping, or poison them, or whatever it was, right? Unless they went to war and they got lost at war through one way, shape, or form, got killed off, right? So even in modern times, like, no one can dispute the fact that size matters, right? That's why we have weight divisions in almost all the sports, because a 250-pound man is not the same as a 200-pound, definitely not the same as a 150-pound man, right? So to be slightly larger than other people, it was a benefit, but to be much larger, it was very easy for you to just abuse your strength, right? And we can see this in chimp societies. Like in chimp societies, if it's a very large and strong chimp ruling the chimp society, most often than not, they're actually ruling through force and fear and pain and violence, right? But like all creatures, they have an off day. And on that off day, what ends up happening is the other chimps group up and they essentially rip off that chimp's testicles, bite their fingers off, bite their toes off, basically handicap them severely or kill them, right? But in the chimp societies where the medium-sized chimp or the smaller chimp is the alpha chimp of that group, this chimp is better at ruling his society or his group with compassion, with friendship, with love. He's able to de-escalate situations that might arise into becoming more violent, right? So he's able to create a different type of a bond. So these medium and smaller chimps that are alpha males, they have a much longer longevity in terms of ruling their kingdom, right? And I find it very ironic how we can take away so much about human nature based on the nature of chimps. And David and Goliath is a perfect example, right? Like Goliath was a giant, and David essentially just a normal sized small kid or whatever. He killed this giant with a slingshot of sorts. Essentially, he flung a stone strong enough and fast enough and hit this giant in the head and killed him. And this is kind of my point. Like, that's just a biblical example, right? Now, these stories might be from 10,000 years, 20,000. I don't know how far you have to go in history to find actual giants as a commonplace. But I personally believe at some point in time giants existed. And then we also have just large human beings, right? But there is definitely how can I say it? Like, there's a big difference in between just being a large human being and being a giant, right? It's something when someone is just a foot taller than everybody else or 2 feet taller. But if someone is like 4 feet taller than everybody else, 5, 10 feet taller, well, it's a completely different story then, right? Essentially, you got someone walking around like everybody else, or like kindergartners in terms of size and strength. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions about what I'm talking about. And these are my views. Doesn't mean everything is my belief, but these are my views, and I have hypotheses, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about these things. So, Solo Yola Bolo, you guys have a nice day. Peace.